And I've heard from inside Republican circles and right-wing media that the hate campaign against Kamala Harris has begun. You'll notice they purposefully pronounce her name wrong. They say Kamala. They do it all the time.
We don't know if Joe Biden has actually removed his name from being the Democrat nominee for president, right? I mean, what we know is that a letter has been presented to the world on a social media account that is not run by Joe Biden. It's run by one of his staffers. And we know on that same account, he has endorsed Kamala Harris to be the Democrat nominee for president and eventually the president of the United States. But nobody actually has firsthand knowledge and verification that Joe Biden has, in fact, written the letter that we've seen and authorized its distribution. So any news agency that's saying, yes, Joe Biden has written, no, you don't know that firsthand. You're just taking their word for it. It would be great to actually see Joe Biden and have him confirm it firsthand. Not that he has a functioning brain at this point anyway, but more accurately, Kamala Harris is now theoretically in line to ascend to the throne of the nomination for the Democrats for president of the United States. And Mika and Joe this morning were Johnny on the spot to make sure that anybody who dares to criticize the brilliance and political genius of Kamala Harris is called out for what they really truly are: hate-mongering racists.
You can see how quickly they tried to steal the unity narrative. And I've heard from inside Republican circles and right-wing media that the hate campaign against Kamala Harris has begun. You'll notice they purposefully pronounce her name wrong. They say Kamala. They do it all the time. It is on purpose. But the talk is to start that hate campaign and get it going and start it churning. So my hope is that major Democrats and major Republicans, from the Obamas to the Bush family to military leaders, get behind the democracy ticket and we move on. You can see.
Okay, this requires a bit of a fisking. We've got to break this down stanza by stanza because this is Mika at her greatest. Let's begin here at the beginning.
How quickly they tried to steal the unity narrative.
The unity narrative? Are you kidding me? Obama didn't endorse her. Gavin Newsom hasn't endorsed her. Nancy Pelosi hasn't endorsed her. What unity narrative? I love that there needs to be a unity narrative at all, by the way. This is the democracy dies in darkness kind of party that says that the people must have a voice. Listen, I don't know who the nominee is going to be for the Democrats, but I can tell you one thing I know for certain. The voters, the citizens, actual Democrats will not have a say in this. Only a small handful, a few hundred, maybe 1,900 total, will actually have the final say as to who the nominee is. So the unity movement needs to be adhered to, right? And who is it that's trying to destroy the unity movement? Listen to this.
And I've heard from inside Republican circles and right-wing media.
Who in Republican circles and right-wing media is talking to Mika Brzezinski? I've heard in Republican circles and right-wing media. Oh, I guess she must mean Mitt Romney and the Bulwark. Republicans, nobody's talking to you, Mika. Oh, she has so many sources in right-wing media. Yeah, I have no doubt. I have no doubt that Tucker Carlson talks to her on a regular basis. There's more. It's so brilliant.
That the hate campaign against Kamala Harris.
A hate campaign. You know what that hate campaign against Kamala Harris consists of? Playing Kamala Harris videos, showing you Kamala Harris in her own words and in her own cackle, for that matter. What can be unburdened by what has been. That's the hate campaign. How dare you show us Kamala Harris actually speaking for herself? How dare you quote Kamala Harris verbatim? That's a hate campaign is what that is. We're back to cheap fakes again, guys. That didn't take long.
Has begun. You'll notice they purposefully pronounce her name wrong. They say Kamala. They do it all the time.
All right, let's just take that one up right. Well, actually, you know what? We'll get to the mispronouncing of Kamala in a moment.
It is on purpose, but the talk is to start that hate campaign and get it going and start it churning.
Hate campaign.
So my hope is that major Democrats and major Republicans, from the Obamas to the Bush family to military leaders, get behind the democracy ticket.
So she wants the Bush family, the Obamas, and military leaders to get behind the democracy ticket that will be chosen without the benefit of democracy, without the benefit of one citizen casting a vote. That's now the democracy ticket. And she wants the Bush family, the Obamas, and military leaders, because, you know, that will quell any suspicions that there's a deep state, uniparty, military industrial warmongering complex in Washington, D.C., trying to cram Kamala Harris down your throats. Yeah, there's nothing more pro-democracy and pro-populist and pro-voice of the people than the Bush family, the Obamas, and military leaders uniting behind Kamala Harris being placed on the ticket without the benefit of any votes, and then they're going to call it the democracy ticket. That's just beautiful. And let's get to Kamala and the pronunciation of her name, because we've been hearing this for 4 years. Remember when Tucker Carlson mispronounced her name and we were told it was racist? We remember.
Tucker, can I just say one quick thing, because this is something that will serve you and your fellow hosts on Fox. Her name is pronounced comma, like the punctuation mark la, Kamala. Okay? Seriously, I've heard every sort of bastardization.
So what?
That's how it is, Kamala.
Okay.
Well,
but
I think it's out of respect for somebody who's going to be on the national ticket. Pronouncing her name right is actually not. It's kind of a.
So I'm
minimum.
disrespecting her by mispronouncing her name unintentionally. So it begins. You're not allowed to criticize Kamala Harris or Kamala Harris or whatever because Kamala Harris.
Whatever.
Okay, look, I unintentionally mispronounced her name, but I love the idea that she's immune from criticism. So let me restate my question, because on this show, nobody in power is immune from criticism. Our political leaders must be held to account. That's our job. People of sound mind and body have a responsibility to get it right. So do your duty. If you see someone else mispronouncing Kamala Harris's name, you need to intervene and call them out for hate speech. And bonus points if you get them fired or post their license plate on social media. We all share in this responsibility. And with that in mind, we have some footage to show you now. It's from one of Kamala Harris's stops last weekend in Cleveland. Again, Kamala Harris has been on the scene for several years now. You should know how to pronounce her name, so listen very carefully.
Hey, Cleveland! It's Kamala. I just came to say thank you.
Hey, Cleveland, it's Kamala? Okay. There are dog whistles, and then there are foghorns. That was a foghorn. That was racism and sexism combined in a repulsive little Reese's peanut butter cup of hate.
Oh, God, I do miss the nightly Tucker on Fox News, and so does Fox News, I assure you. Yeah, there was Kamala apparently mispronouncing her own name. And that's racist. It's disrespectful. It's undermining. And that's what Mika Brzezinski is now calling the hate campaign against her. But, you know, Tucker's not the only one. Kamala's not the only one. What about Justice Sotomayor swearing her into office as vice president?
Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Kamala Davy Harris, do solemnly swear.
I, Kamala Davy Harris, do solemnly swear.
So it's not Kamala, it's Kamala. See, I'm confused now because Sotomayor said Kamala and she said Kamala, right?
Kamala Davy Harris, do solemnly swear.
I, Kamala Davy Harris.
Okay. See, okay. So now which one's getting it right? You know what? Let's go to the man who hired her in the first place. No. Not Willie Brown. No. I meant most recently hired her. That would be Joe Biden. I'm sure he knows how to pronounce her name.
That's what I asked Kamala. I asked Kamala to be the last voice in the room.
Hold on. It was Kamala or Kamala? By the way, I wonder if that last voice in the room was, all right, close your eyes, Joe. Here comes the pillow for your face. This will be over soon. That was the last voice in the room. That's fine and good. That's how Mika began Morning Joe today. Then it got even more insane. I kid you not. James Clyburn, the man who single-handedly not only won the nomination for Joe Biden in South Carolina in 2020, but demanded that Kamala Harris was the nominee. Well, technically, he didn't demand Kamala Harris was the nominee. James Clyburn wasn't picky. He just said it has to be a black woman because, it's all about merit and skill and something.
And so I think all this foolishness about him not being able to serve out his term is craziness. It's a big difference in running the government and running the campaign. Joe Biden was not up to what it took to respond to sound bites when you're trying to solve problems around the world. He is a great problem solver, and I believe he will go down in history as one of the best and most consequential presidents we've ever had.
Yes, I do love that they keep using the word consequential. Well, there were definitely consequences to the Biden presidency. You can't deny that. That was Obama's word that he used. Consequential presidencies. Definitely, we're still feeling the consequences. I believe we will be continuing to feel the consequences for many years to come. But there you go. There's no reason why he can't run the country. He just can't respond to sound bites on the campaign trail, guys. But sure, he can show up for work today. Although, did he show up for work today? He didn't show up for work today. But I'm sure he'll be fine later in the week. Joe Scarborough then took up a brand new political argument for Democrats and the left. You're going to love this. They're not hypocritical at all.
The fact they're freaking out so much has to excite a Democratic Party that was really at its lowest ebb of any party that I've seen since, let's say, Watergate.
The entire theory of the case from the Trump campaign, and it's literally on signs, is strength versus weakness. Right. Donald Trump is strong. He just survived an assassination attempt. Joe Biden is old and weak, the argument goes.
Right.
Now, that's off the table. You have Kamala Harris, the vice president of the United States, who presents, you talked to Democrats last night, sort of imagining again that debate on June 27th, what it would have been like if Kamala Harris had been standing there and the softballs that were coming across the plate, the lies Donald Trump was telling, what she would have done with those and now will do if there's another debate.
Well, and age becomes
real fast. The strength versus weakness is not off the table because Kamala Harris is 100% weak, and she owns every single weak decision and policy that the Biden administration has inflicted upon our country and upon the world. So, and by the way, what campaign and what convention have these guys been watching? Biden's age was very rarely brought up during the convention. No, actually, the Republicans ran, and Donald Trump has been running a very clear campaign that is almost entirely about the disastrous policies that this administration has put forth. It's because they knew they were quite possibly going to have to run against Kamala Harris. In fact, Donald Trump said almost a year ago in an interview with Cheryl Atkinson that he didn't think Joe Biden was going to make it and that he would be running against Kamala Harris. So this has all been about policies, and Kamala Harris has to own those policies. But that's okay. Willie Geist, the newsman at the table, he's not there for opinion. He's there just to report the facts. He's going to continue to lie on behalf of the party because, well, that's what the MSNBC viewers expect at this point.
Becomes an issue now because he's 20 years older? I think almost.
He's now officially, now that Joe Biden is out of the race, he's now the oldest major party nominee in the history of the country. And as we've all pointed out, has shown many signs of mental slippage. And, you would think at this point, with Joe Biden out of the race, that we could all now focus on clearly and cleanly on another elderly gentleman who may be not fit for the job. If the standards apply to Joe Biden are now to apply to Donald Trump.
He's 20 years older than her. He's 20 years older than her.
Hey, guys, age is an issue now. It's okay to talk about somebody being too old to be president. Now that Biden's gone, bring it on. Now it's okay to talk about it. We're Morning Joe. We're a news show. It's pathetic.
Yes, he's 20. So
almost 20. Yeah,
almost 20 years older, and that's I think one of the reasons why
Contrast.
Republicans are melting down, because suddenly he's the old guy in the race by a long shot.
Yeah, and they tried for the unity message, which worked for how many days at the convention? 4.5 or something like that. And then the back half of Donald Trump's speech that night on Thursday completely ended that. If you want to go watch another speech, his event on Saturday,
oh boy,
all the way back to the old Trump.
Yeah. Oh, was it really?
And he was complete. And this is on Saturday, right? So he's completely freaked out about what may be coming down the pike. There was no sign of this alleged new Donald Trump, which none of us bought, of course.
You know what bothers me more than anything else beyond the bias on behalf of Biden and against Donald Trump and against Republicans and against you, the voters, which is, you take that for granted. What bothers me more than anything else is how absurdly amateur they are, and how, what political campaign are they watching right now? This constant refrain that Republicans and the Trump campaign are melting down and freaking out over this. Do you see that? I don't see that. I see confidence. I see swagger. Let's face it. Donald Trump just defeated Joe Biden without a single vote being cast in the election. And now he gets Kamala Harris, who is less popular than Donald Trump and who owns all of the policies. And if you can find one singular policy that defines Kamala Harris's role in the Biden administration, it goes without saying, you know what it is. She was the border czar. The border, which is the single greatest debacle for the Biden administration. No, this is great. And the fact that Biden stays in office actually makes it easier to run against Kamala Harris because she's not an incumbent. Think about it. If Kamala Harris is so good, why would Joe Biden have to stay in office? Why not just step down and let Kamala take over? She's just that good and competent and wonderful, isn't she? It just bothers me that they're that bad at what they do, these guys. But their audience doesn't know the difference because this is all they watch. We're smarter because, see, we've been surrounded by left-wing media bias our entire life. We can see right through it. We know how the left thinks. They have no idea how we think because they never expose themselves to us or our ideas. They are kept in a protective little bubble, and all they hear is left-wing talking points all the time. We would love to live in that kind of bubble where it's just right-wing talking points, but that bubble doesn't exist. You can't live your existence in American culture without being surrounded and inundated no matter where you go, whether it's in the music business or the movie business or late night television or regular sitcoms on television or pop culture or in academia or in your corporation that you work for because of your quarterly DEI exams that you have to take. We are inundated all the time with left-wing talking points. So we know who they are. They have no idea who we are. And so they can get away with sitting there on national television on MSNBC saying, oh, the Republicans are melting down. They're freaking out. No, nobody over here is freaking out, guys. I assure you. But keep that up. Oh, and by the way, one other thing, this whole idea of Trump being too old. Now that Biden's gone, we can talk about how old he is. Well, it wasn't long ago. In fact, it was just, a few hours ago when Joe Biden's age and his mental incapacity was actually a charming aspect of who he was as president. Don't believe me? Well, believe these guys.
And I love what he's done for the country. He had authenticity and touch, whether you saw it or not, but everything about him, even sometimes the stutter and the bumbling was part of the touch, part of the sort of empathic, very loving, very clear-eyed touch that he had that allowed him and enabled him to be an effective president. But all of that turned against him after the debate for all the reasons that we discussed. And he would say, no time to complain about it. Let's move on. It's go time.
Oh, I bet. Yeah, no, there's plenty of complaining going on, trust me, behind the scenes. But yeah, there you go. See, we just had a segment where Joe and his little roundtable, not including Mika, which is notable, talked about how Trump is old and he's infirmed and he has signs of mental incapacity and that he stumbles and he slurs. And there's Mika saying, you know, when Biden stumbles and slurs and stutters, it's part of his charm. It's part of what made him great. You can't make this stuff up. And finally, Caitlin Collins over on CNN. She tried this as well with Scott Jennings, an absolute beast right now. It's honestly the only reason to tune into CNN, if there is a reason to tune into CNN. She pointed this out with her arched eyebrows and smarmy little smug attitude. You know, Donald Trump is now the oldest candidate.
Yeah, Trump is now the oldest nominee that we've ever seen in U.S. presidential history. Trump is now the oldest nominee that we've ever seen in U.S. presidential history. Trump is now the oldest nominee that we've ever seen in U.S. presidential history.
Just play it on a loop, because that's what you're going to hear over and over and over again. It's beautiful. It's great. It's wonderful. It's freeing to be a Democrat.